With hype for the 2023 NBA season quickly building, one team who has not been receiving the respect they deserve as a legitimate championship contender is the Denver Nuggets, and it makes sense. After all, despite winning 2 straight MVPs and being arguably the best player in the entire NBA, Nikola Jokic gets almost no respect himself when it comes to the best player in the world discussion, so why would his team be treated any differently? Well, today I'm going to try to fix this disrespect and tell you all why Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets could very well be holding a championship trophy when we reach the end of this upcoming season. Starting off with Jokic himself, the man just had one of the greatest seasons in all of NBA history, especially for a center, and I am dead serious about that. The dude just gave you 27, 14, and 8 with a steal and a block on an absurd 58% shooting, along with 81% from the free throw line. And if that's not good enough, he did it all while being basically the only above average offensive player on his team, besides maybe Monte Morris. The rest of this roster around him, with Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray out, was garbage. He carried this team on his back to 48 wins, and for what? Nothing but disrespect from the rest of the NBA fanbase because he didn't beat the reigning champion Golden State Warriors with the trash roster around him. This man was supposed to pull off some Rick Barry, Tim Duncan crap and carry a bunch of scrubs past a legitimate stacked championship contender all by himself. Get out of here. Nikola Jokic is, at the very least, realistically in the conversation for being the best player in the entire league, and considering his age, we have no reason to expect him to, at the very least, be just as good next year as he just was, if not better. This man is going to be 27 next year. That is a little bit younger than many players in the league peak these days. So Nikola Jokic could very well continue to improve. Last season, his efficiency still went up despite having less help around him. His playmaking continues to improve. He's one of, if not the best passers in the entire league. He's an incredible scorer with great efficiency, and his defense finally took a massive leap last season, despite not having all that much defensive help around him. Now take this man, alright, Nikola Jokic, and give him back Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., an all-star caliber guard who's pretty good defensively himself, and Michael Porter Jr. who has the potential to become an all-star caliber player in the next few seasons. At the very least, you're getting back a pretty efficient 18-point per game power forward and a guard who is a combo guard. I was going to say point guard, but he's kind of in the middle. But a guy in Jamal Murray who can easily drop 30 on any given night on good efficiency himself, while taking a little bit of the playmaking duties away from Jokic. These two players alone would make the Denver Nuggets contenders. They would be a massive boost to this overall roster. But when you look at the moves the Nuggets made this offseason, they actually went further and continued to build the team around him. By adding guys like KCP and Bruce Brown, along with Ish Smith, the Nuggets have significantly boosted their defensive abilities. We saw it in the playoffs the last few years. Even with Jokic's improved defensive abilities himself, the Nuggets just aren't that good of a defensive team. They have always been an offense-first team, and while I do expect that to remain the case, the team now has multiple legitimately good defenders next to Aaron Gordon on this roster to keep themselves an above-average defense. I think we could very easily be looking at a world next season where not only are the Nuggets a top 3 offense in the league, but they are also a top 10 defense in the league. This team is going to be incredibly hard to score on and especially to defend with the roster they have around them, and that is without even taking into consideration the fact that Bones Highland may make another jump himself. Rookie guards tend to really struggle in the league, and after another season of experience and an offseason to train, this kid has a pretty high ceiling as an NBA player. We saw flashes of him last year, but overall he wasn't able able to consistently put it together. But with more help around him and another offseason to improve, Bones Highland could be looking like one of the best up-and-coming young star guards in the NBA. Now, that's probably taking it too far, and I will say I don't expect that to happen, but it is also not out of the question for this dude to be a legitimate quality starting point guard by the end of next season. He really does have that kind of potential, and a few years down the line, who knows, he could be even better than that. So the Denver Nuggets are a stacked roster in the Western Conference, arguably the best player in the entire world. Why on earth are they not getting any championship hype? Well, it's pretty simple. They're in Denver. Like, straight up, nobody cares about the Denver Nuggets outside of Denver. The only reason that I really care about them is because I used to go to Colorado every summer, so the place is a little closer to my heart than it is for most people. Now, there is one caveat with this team, and that is health. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are not even officially confirmed to be ready at the start of the next season, and if they're not, we don't know exactly how long we're going to have to wait for them to get back and play with the team. Although considering both of them were in conversations to be playing in the playoffs last year, my money would be on them being ready to play when the season begins. We also don't know if these players are going to be 100% as good as they were pre-injury. Jamal Murray, I'm not personally worried about. He had a worse injury than Michael Porter Jr., I believe, but he also just has a pretty solid history of being a healthy guy, and he's waited a very long time to come back and play, so my money would certainly be on him being just as good as he was before. Michael Porter Jr. is a little more of a question mark, but once again, you've got a guy who's waited a pretty long time to come back, so I would once again bet that he is going to be just fine when he starts playing basketball games once more for the Nuggets. Now, we do have to wait and see how the chemistry works out with all these players. There is, of course, a question mark. I don't know everything, so maybe they don't come back 100%, but assuming everything goes well health-wise for this team, they could legitimately finish the regular season as not just contenders, but the championship favorites. Looking at some of the other teams in the West, the Clippers have a lot of big question marks around them. I plan to make a video on them at some point. The Golden State Warriors, who just won the title, are going to be very, very good, but they also are getting older. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson could all potentially fall off a little bit next year. The Lakers are obviously a disaster at the moment. I'm not expecting anything from them. The Grizzlies are still a few years away in my eyes. I think they overachieved last year. So if I had to place my bet today, my money is on the Denver Nuggets making the finals next season. Not necessarily winning the titles. I'm not sure if I'm ready to say that they're going to beat the Bucks or the Celtics or even the Sixers. But my money, honestly, is that the Denver Nuggets are going to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals next season. This team is going to truly be that good. Do not sleep on the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic.